Next to me here is an 1892 Mason and Hamlin reed organ. Welcome to Hack a Week. So here I go down another rabbit hole with an old instrument. I love old instruments. If you've watched my channel for any time at all, you'll know that I like all of the older vintage instruments and I love to just play around with them. I can mess around on keyboards a little bit. I can't read piano music, but I can match notes and play enough to play around and make melodies. And I've had a few upright pianos that I've worked on. This is the first reed organ I've ever owned. And they work with bellows, and you pump the pedals. There's a stop key, and as you do that, you are emptying bellows that are down below. And because they are going empty, nature abhors a vacuum, atmospheric pressure then pushes into that empty space to try to fill the void. So then what happens is it comes through the reeds, and the reeds vibrate and make a sound. This one has a few issues with a couple of keys that are sticking. You push the key and raise it back up, but internally it's staying open so that you continually hear sound like you do now. There's no keys pushed down. These are called the stops. This one has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 13 stops. Each one of them will change the sound because it opens up holes and allows the air to run through other reeds to make harmonics and things like that. The reason they're called stops is right now all the air has been stopped. Have you ever heard pull out all the stops? Probably came from an organ. Anyway, we need to get in the back of this, take a look around and see what's going on. It'll be the first time for me. So this is another one of those Hack a Week videos where you're learning along with me at the same time. I've never been inside one. Let's take a look. Here we are at the back of the organ, and this panel has to come off so we can access the goodies inside. There are 6 screws, flathead, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So first thing we need to do is remove those and set them aside and keep track of where they go. Sometimes there are longer screws in places than others. These cover screws are probably all going to be the same, but I've learned from upright pianos it's a good idea to keep track of where screws go. You don't want to put a longer one where a shorter one is supposed to be. Okay, that is the last one. And I think that this is going to pop out past this panel here. It's a little difficult. What I'm going to do is open up the top, reach in and try to push the panel back. I think that's the way to do it. Oh, it's part of the top assembly. Okay, the hinges are attached to the top. So I think you just come back and lift up. Yes, indeed. We're going to set this off to the side where it's safe. Let's take a look in the back of this. I got some light on it here, although a bit rudimentary. Not really up to cinematography standards, but it doesn't matter. Inside this area right here is where the reeds are. There's reeds inside here for the sub bass. I'm not really sure what's inside this. I'm going to guess there's more reeds. They're all connected to this large thing down here where all the air moves through. There's a name for that. There's a name for all of this stuff. It's kind of hard to find though exactly what it's called without reading through lots and lots of forum posts. The Reed Organ Society is a great place. Anyway, those are the stops. All those levers up there are connected to the stops on the front. And when I pull on the one for Forte, you can see that mechanism move. And what's going to happen is it's going to open up this chamber more to allow you to hear the reeds more. Those are the reeds back in there. And the air comes in through them, not out, in, as you pump on the bellows. Some of these connections here are not doing so well. Let's see. There's one in particular I found where deep down in here there's a little wire. Okay, way in there there's a wire that looks like it's just kind of bent and hanging down right next to that nail. That should be connected to something and it's not. So when I pull on that stop, it just kind of binds up and nothing happens, which means that this whole action really should come apart to investigate that. So like I mentioned, there's a mechanism here. When you pull on the stops, things here move. You can see some of them moving as I work my way through. And over on the other side, same thing. There's a set of them over here. And they open and close various holes and allow reeds to make sound. So there's a lot of dust in here that needs to be cleaned out, and we need to check out that entire action. When I pull on some of the stops, I get no change at all. But let me just play a little bit of what I can. You'll see what happens when you pull stops out. And right now, none of the stops are pulled out. When I press a key, I do get some sound. So this is the lower Forte. Let me just do a chord and open that. It'll get a bit louder when I pull on it. And pull the stop. Whoops, that's interesting. That should not be happening. There's an upper one sticking. Let's see. This is Viola. That's a little out of tune. Sub bass is pretty intense. And up here, so, what else? Oh yes, there's some levers on the front by your knees. Also makes it louder because it opens up two more baffles that face towards the player. Probably in the back as well, I guess. So you can do like a crescendo with that. The one on the left knee, it's a beautiful sounding instrument and I want to make it play better, so let's get it apart. By the way, some interesting paperwork came with the organ. There's a couple notes in here of some repairs that were done in 1991. So the paperwork is always kind of fun to have on any instrument. This is about the guy that does the work, local newspaper clipping. Anyway, fun stuff to save. So behind this is where the keyboard action is. There's the reeds in there. I believe that's called a palette. I'm going to learn as I go. Anybody that knows about these, feel free to comment. Tell me what's going on with what I've called something the wrong name, whatever. Because this is a learning experience for the two of us. Down here on other models I've seen, there was a little flowerette kind of a thing. I'm not sure if it was painted on or if it was actually a brass piece on there or something like that, but right here I can see a faint trace of where it used to be. So maybe it was just like a gold colored paint stencil, something on there. This side I can still see a tiny bit of it too. And this looks like it's been refinished. But it was done right. It was done very, very nice. And there are a few scars that look like they have been varnished over. Let's get this cover off. 2 screws. One on each side, and I'm pretty sure as soon as they come out, this is going to be loose, and I'm going to have to kind of hang on to it, yeah, as I pull them apart. There. So that's that. You can see maybe that that's just a screen. So we're going to set that aside. What's next? Okay, you can already see there's a little kind of a hook latch assembly right there. Push that out of the way. That's a bit loose, I might as well tighten it up right now. Right here with a screwdriver. Okay, it looks like, yes, there's another one here. It's just a little hook latch. A little stubborn. And yeah, there's one down here. So let's see. That is all loose now. This looks like on the back side there's going to be some screws. Let's take a look. Yes, indeed. It looks like there's a screw there and one here. But don't think. Yeah, it does look like it's independent. I'm going to pull the screws out. I'm thinking that just like a upright piano, this whole action is going to be a separate piece that's just going to lift right off the bottom, because all of its connection to the other stuff is just a contact point connection. Not so much something mechanically joined. We'll find out in just a minute. Pull those screws out. There's a washer as well. Keep those aside. Remembering where they go. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. I know there's organ people out there right now going, yeah, dude, the whole thing tilts back. I'm gonna put those two screws back. This whole thing pivots right there. And so I need to get this box off. There's just a couple of screws that hold that on, but first I'm going to put those screws back so I don't forget where they go. The other reason to put them back is that, you know, they hold this whole thing to this pivot mechanism. So now this comes off. Just kind of have to loosen the screw and then just slide it forward. The way the latch is designed, you don't have to take the screw all the way out. Lift this up, and I think we're going to see, yes. So yes, those are the sub-bass reeds from C, low C on down. Okay, now the entire action should just tilt back. Almost. This is in the way. It's hitting against these pegs. Bonk. So I need to remove it. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. This serves as the music desk. Maybe it's called the music desk. I don't know. I shall learn. Okay, the last one. Alright, it is still hitting against the pegs, but now I see another thing. Here and here are some little blocks that hold the pin for this pivot mechanism in place. If I take those off, the entire action will lift right out of there. Okay. Now, let's see what happens. I believe everything's just going to lift right up. Almost. Maybe there is some stuff still holding. Well, it appears to be all free and clear. Maybe it's going to come out the back. Yeah. It's a tight fit. There it is. One organ action in my hands. Well now, let's take a look around. (1893) technology. Pretty impressive. The Industrial Revolution brought all this about. Same thing with pianos. They were cranking these things out like crazy. Pianos anyway. Organs probably as well. So all of this dust and crud, I'm sure is contributing to some of the stickiness of everything. It's always interesting to see what's underneath the keys on some of these instruments, and on this one there's nothing really to find, no treasures. Sometimes I've found matchbooks, bobby pins, other various little things, notes, Christmas gift tags, things like that. Well, let's get the dust out of it to start out with, and then I'm going to see if I can get in here and repair that little section that had the wire not connected to anything. Here's the underside of the keyboard. Things don't look too bad here. Just dust and dirt, some worn out felts right here on the stops. When you move them, it then pulls on. Let me see if I can get one you can see here. There it is. That rod rotates, and then it rotates that lever. That felt being worn off right there at the tip is causing probably undue friction, and that's why they feel so difficult to pull. So I'll probably replace the felts on the end of all of these. After a bit of looking around here, now that I can mess with this one a little better, the one that I thought had some wire thing not connected, it's just a return spring. That's all it is. It's just kind of a leaf spring that pushes that lever back up, and it's for the octave stop, I guess, because it says octave on it, and when you open it up it does indeed let other notes come through, so it's kind of like it's pushing on some of the keys. I don't know, that's an interesting mechanism. I need to look into how that works. It's pretty cool. So I'm scraping all the old felt off from these, get them nice and cleaned up, and we're going to put new felt on. And I've got some hide glue for that. Hide glue is water soluble, so you can take it apart later, like with a steamer, or just maybe a little moisture if you don't have a steamer. But I've got to sand all this old residual felt off before I can put the new stuff on. Most of the old felt is gone now. I've got some 150 grit on a stick, just wrapped it around a wooden stick. I'm just going to sand on these a little bit. All the felt is removed from both sides, and in the process I learned a thing here. There's a small notch. See that? That's where the lead edge of the felt is going to line up to, right in that little notch. So I made sure I cleaned all those out. Let's glue some felt. So this is just felt from any art store. I got this from Michael's. It's like 80 cents for a sheet of it. I'll cut it to the same width as the pieces here. I wish I knew what these were called. I will learn before this is over. I'm going to know what these are called. But they're what is connected to the stops. So stop lever, let's call it a stop lever for now. I don't know. Close enough. Anyway, I've got a book on the way. Hopefully about the right width. And now I can cut some to length. If I get one, I'll know what the rest need to be. Looks like that is about right for my length. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On the other side, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 pieces. Okay, let's start gluing. First I'm going to apply a little bit of glue. The stuff is almost, you know, like the stuff that came in the brown plastic bottle if you were in grade school in, like, I don't know, the 70s. Do they still use that stuff? Alright, everything has glue on it. It's been sitting for a little bit. Let's see how well this sticks. Okay, same thing on this side. Let that dry. This is pretty well dried down now, so I'm going to just taper this edge of the felt like that, and maybe trim up the edges anywhere where it might be a bit too wide. I'm doing this because that's what I saw when I took them off. They all have their edges tapered down like that. All trimmed up, ready to reinstall. And this is where they will install onto these levers that move when you pull on one of the stops. This is the Tremulent Box. This is what has the neat little thing in it that makes it go wah 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 wah. So there's a screw here and here, and then you just turn and lift 2 holes. Also 2 holes in this box, and in this box is this nifty little mechanism. See how that moves? As air moves through here, and it wants to exit out here. And so what happens is it closes, it tries to close it, and then this spring tension on here and this counterbalance weight, which I assume was probably tuned by somebody at the factory to get the right up and down vibrato effect, that's what keeps it all in balance. And so it does that. And how it achieves this is through this hole right here. There's 2 holes. Right here is a plug, basically. It's a cap that closes off an exit hole here. Now remember, this is a box. The air comes in through here. It's going through the Tremulent Box. That's what I'm going to call it. And when I push on the peg right here, it usually gets pushed on by this lever. After you pull out the Tremulent stop, the arm goes like this, pushes this. That in turn closes off that exit point and forces the air to go through the Tremulent mechanism, creating the effect. Pretty cool stuff. So just to recap on this, I suppose if someone has an issue with one of these not working, the first place to look at is pull the box and make sure the felts are all okay to seal it somewhat to the bottom. And then check in here to make sure that this mechanism is actually blocking off this hole so that the box can work. I've checked out the Tremulent and it works okay. I'll demonstrate that in a bit. But this button right here, this peg that gets pushed by the screw on that rod, I noticed that it is a leather cap. It's a piece of leather that's just formed by pressing it over something when it's wet, and then once it's dried out and still pliable, it makes this nice cover. So this is what they had to work with, of 1893 leather. So when you push this down, there is a leak that goes on inside there. That would be from the bellows. You're losing air there. So I need to make a new one, and I'm going to make it out of some leather that I have. Here is another thing that needs repair. This side is okay. This is the, let's see, this is the lever for, it's called the Melodia. See how it lifts that lever up? And it lets more sound come out. And that gets flipped back in place by a torsion spring. And that torsion spring is that piece of metal right up there. Let me point to it right there. And it goes all the way over, and then it pokes into this baffle right there. At that point is where that piece of wire is bent and goes down into this baffle. And when you lift up on it, you're twisting that spring. So it's a torsion spring, and at the other end is this piece. Pull it out so you can see what's going on. It's got a bend in it, and right now I'm loading it up by twisting it in that direction, and then I put it in this hole and set it in place. Now over time these break, which is evident, like right over here. That is the original hole it was in, so it probably snapped off a long time ago. And when the repairs were done on this instrument, someone did that. Over to the right is another one of these baffles. This one is connected to the stop that's labeled diapason, which I think means a swelling in harmony. That torsion spring is broken. And right there is the broken end of that spring. I need to get that out of there. and we need to put a bend in that. I've got the spring sticking out here where I can get at it easily. I need to put a nice arc bend in there, not a sharp bend. So I'm going to use the pliers to actually kind of form it around. Just do a gentle bend like so. Okay. I need to drill a small hole now where this spring is going to go. And of course I bent it perfectly lined up with where a nail is, of course. Well, let's see. The hole's drilled a little bit above that metal portion into some wood. It actually seemed like a better place. I was having a hard time getting through the metal anyway. So let's get this pushed into that wood. Pretty good. There we go. So now this baffle should return. Yes, it does. That takes care of that. When this is lifted up by pulling on the diapason stop, you're actually lifting up all those levers you see on the top, and when you do that, you are lifting a peg off from a very small reed. Let's get in closer. If I get the light just right, you can see in there, see those little pegs with a felt on the end of them? Well, they go down and they hit that reed, all of those reeds, and they stop them from working. Well, I discovered that that diapason also has another piece on this side that lifts up and opens up reeds, so there's reeds on both sides. And so it's probably reeds tuned to a harmony. I've got this jig I made, and what it's going to do is duplicate this piece of leather I pulled off, like so. And I've got this piece of leather. It's a nice soft piece, really pliable, and it's wet. So to work leather, you get it wet. You form it, you do what you want with it, and when it dries, it will retain that shape. So this is going to go over the top of that and pinch down on this piece of leather, which I'm going to place like so. I'm going to stretch it a little first. Just going to push that down on there. And then we're just going to pinch it into place. Okay, let's get some clamps on that. I'm going to get one right here. I'm going to clamp it right to the bench. I'm going to put another one here. And I'm just going to snug that up a little bit. And what I want to do is pull on this. Try to stretch out as many wrinkles that may be under that piece of wood as possible. And then crank that sucker down tight. That's it. Then we're going to let that sit overnight and dry out. Fast forward 24 hours. Let's see how much this dried out. I may have to leave it longer to get it to fully dry out. Whoa, it's pretty stuck feeling. Yeah, it still feels wet, but as you can see, it formed up nice. I am going to clamp it back down, let it dry some more.